what's good for the herd is good for the bird.
For years, ranchers and conservationists have debated whether cattle grazing could coexist with sage grouse habitat. Now, a decade-long study may have been the answer. In today's Inside Ag, we looked at what researchers found and what it means for the future of grazing in the West.
Yeah, the heart of the question is, like, are they compatible or not?
Across 75,000 acres of sagebrush in southern Idaho, a question was asked. Can cows and sage grouse share land without harming one another?
The number of grouse in the world have decreased, especially sage grouse in our part of the world. Been a pretty steady decrease since about the time they started measuring in the 1960s.
And more than 10 years ago, researchers began the quest of answering that.
They identified several simplot BLM grazing allotments that contained leks with high numbers that also had a season of use in the spring, which allowed us the opportunity to participate in this study.
Led by the University of Idaho, the Bureau of Land Management, Idaho Fish and Game, and the USGS, the research tracked how livestock grazing impacts sage grouse nesting. Researchers compared grazed pastures to untouched ones. And now, we fast forward 10 years and get the findings, which were surprising to some, but reassuring to many.
So after 10 years, we finally have the science and the data to prove what ranchers have been seeing for decades. You know, grouse and cows can live together successfully. What the study found was that livestock grazing did not have any detrimental effect to the nesting success of grouse within spring grazed allotments, and that removal of livestock from an area did not result in a higher success rate for the sage grouse.
Turns out sage grouse nest under thick brush, an area cows typically avoid, and the length of the grass doesn't impact the nesting process.
Grouse are not walking around and trying to look for ungrazed pastures. There was really no difference in nest density in grazed or ungrazed pastures, which indicates they're not selecting ungrazed places. And so that was also, I think, pretty interesting.
They say they study grouse because it's an indicator of what's going on in the rangeland ecosystem. And now that the study's wrapped, the focus shifts to restoration, using that same science to guide fire prevention and habitat recovery.
Making sure that we have a quick fire response to areas where there is critical sage grouse habitat, I think, is critically important. And then ensuring that we're getting the right funding put towards restoration post-fire to see these ecosystems come back and support sagebrush habitat for all sagebrush obligate species into the future is critically important.
The answers from the research are creating a clear path forward to how ranchers can approach livestock grazing, and opens the door for more land opportunity.
Grazing is an important ecological process, but it's also economically important. It's the backbone of all these rural communities that make Idaho, Idaho. Ranching is an important part of it, and now we've shown that if we do it well, we can do both grazing and have healthy rangelands and healthy wildlife. So to me, that is the win-win out of this.
Now, researchers say they'll be analyzing the data from this study for years to come, looking deeper into nest success, insect populations, and long-term rangeland health. We can expect to see those get published over the next several years, but for now, the message is clear. Good grazing doesn't mean necessarily bad bird habitat.
Yeah, and it's an amazing partnership, I think, too. As she said, it's the backbone
Yeah.
of Idaho. You know firsthand. And
Big
so it's really important.
economic impact. I think the other thing that's important to know is this has been controversial for years. And a lot of the stuff that they were saying was like, this study is really just to prove what, you know, ranchers believe to be true.
Right.
It's just, we took 10 years to figure it out.
Yeah,
So.
well, at least they did.
Yeah.
We're back after this.